We're going to try and talk through our thoughts about planning for 2021. And what we're going to do is hopefully stick to a 45-minute presentation. Normally we've done a Q&A at the end on these things, but for this one, we're going to try and cover stuff that needs to be dealt with about the specific topic we're talking about at the moment. So if you could just use the chat function, please, for any questions you've got as we go. Amy will then shout at me and ask me stuff as we go. But if there's something that you'd like to speak about, I think there's probably going to be quite a few questions about, okay, you said this, but our hospice in this situation, what do you think about us? We'd like to deal with that afterwards, if that's okay, because I think everyone deserves a specific and individual answer to that. So we're really, really happy to answer every question that you've got as best we can. But if it's something specific to you and your hospice, if you could use hello@pebblebeachfundraising.com and just post that there, then Amy and I will come back to you and we'll arrange either a phone call or an email or a Zoom chat or whatever it is. Okay, so if you could do that, that'd be great. Thank you. This is the legal stuff about the recording. We are recording these webinars. I think people have found them really helpful that can't turn up at the time. I know quite a few people have been catching up on these afterwards and being able to watch them at leisure and zoom through all the boring bits. So I think that's quite useful. So we'll continue to do that. Again, any questions, any concerns about that, please do let us know. Okay, so here's what we're going to be talking about. It's what we're thinking of for 2021, 2022 planning. So on the back of a interesting last 6 months, and with King Boris's recent announcements on what's happening for the next 6 months, it's incumbent on all of us, I think, to try and think ahead as far as we can about what we're going to do and how we're going to deal with the situation. And we're going to be concentrating in this talk about individual giving fundraising. We will touch on other stuff briefly at the end, but at the moment we're focusing on individual giving and explain why. Really clear, these are just our opinions. This is our view based on our experience of working in the hospice movement 15 years and working with many, many hospices through the last 6 months. This is our gut instinct. It doesn't mean that everything we say is right and everything else is wrong. This is just our perspective. And what I'm hoping is we give you inspiration and ideas that allows you to adopt, adapt, and improve and put together a 2021-2 plan that works for you. And rather than focus on a specific hospice or pick on any of you guys, we're going to be using Pebblebeach Hospice or reinventing Pebblebeach Hospice as our guinea pig, so we can just use that randomly, okay? So Pebblebeach Hospice, and apologies for anyone who happens to be watching this, probably on recording from Dove House in New Zealand. We blatantly stole the image of your hospice. So what's been happening at Pebblebeach Hospice this year? Well, we had some amazing results to our appeals. We had our emergency appeal in April, which went completely crazy and did about 5 times the amount of income that we would expect. We then also had a second version of that, which is our summer resilience appeal. Again, really, really strong, really positive. We launched our Light Up a Life, just going out at the end of this month in a few days, and that's going to be a virtual Light Up a Life, online Light Up a Life, but quite a much stronger fundraising emphasis this year. And of course, we'll have our Christmas appeal that goes out in November, and we're hoping to still get a strong response to that. Now that we know the message, and now that we know that the rule of 6 is likely, and now that we know that we've got another 6 months of restrictions, the focus on Christmas and the challenge and the worry and the problem about Christmas is much stronger. So we think this is going to be a really important time. So we're really happy at Pebblebeach Hospice that although we haven't had events and community as many hospices haven't, we've been able to keep up the income because we've been able to reach out and ask people directly. Other big news in our hospice, we had a new member of staff join. He's gone down very well. And he's been leading us on the planning for clinical delivery and obviously fundraising, working alongside him. And I think both of us, Amy's shaking her head at this one, this is hilarious. I can only see Amy's reaction. The thing that we've realized, both of us, is that this is what we can't do. You know, we cannot, in light of all these uncertainties and different government ministers saying different things to us on any news interview that you care to, what we can't do is just sit there and wait for normality to return and then go back out and start fundraising again. We cannot do that. We've got challenges, of course. We've got momentous challenges. We've no idea what 2021 is going to look like. Okay, so latest guess was restrictions end at Easter. But is that going to be true? Boris told us that everything was going to be fine by Christmas before. Do we know is it going to be a vaccine? We just don't know, okay? movement restrictions. I'm sure we're all sitting here feeling that. You know, we're all affected by the rules that come in. And how does that affect fundraising? Because will the public want to gather together, even if they can? So even if we get to the point where, you know, outdoor mass participation events are going to be possible again, is that something people are going to be happy to do? Is that something, and this is a conversation we've been having with one of our hospice clients just last week, even if we could put a fun run on together or something, as a medical charity, do we want to be in the position of going, guys, hey, let's all get together in a big group and do something together? You know, there's real challenges about what we should be doing, how we can communicate, etc. What about working from home? You know, the Boris thing about, you know, work from home unless you can, in which case you shouldn't, but do if you can't, but then don't. You know, we're all up in the air. Pebblebeach has been working from home for the whole thing. I'm sure most of you guys have. We're going to be there working from home till Easter. So how does that affect how people are going to support us? And of course, awfully and sadly, there are going to be less jobs around. When furlough scheme ends, and there's an announcement today, of course, it's going to be less money, less support for charities, and therefore less support for us. So it's a really awful, uncertain time, and we get that. But we still believe, we still have hope. And the reality is that whatever the situation, local people are still going to need the care that our clinical colleagues deliver. They're still going to need that love and support at the most crucial and important time. And whatever interventions our colleagues can make, whatever support they can give to lift that experience, even if it's only lifting it this year, you know, half the amount that we were normally able to do. Do you know what? They're going to do that. And I have yet to speak to a clinician or a nurse at any hospice who has turned around to say, do you know what? We're just fed up with it. We've done our best, but we're just going to go back and, you know, do what we do and just forget. No, every single one has turned around and said, we're absolutely shattered. We're knackered, but you know what? That's what we're here for. That's what we signed up for. We're here for the fight. We're going to continue to be here. We're not going to let this go, and we're going to work. And so that's the passion that they have, and that's why we've got to take that and we've got to deliver that to the community, because our community does still have the ability to support us. There is still money out there. Yes, there's going to be less of it, but there is money out there, particularly the baby boom generation, who have, you know, managed to get themselves in a position where everyone's retired and they've got their retirement plans settled. They haven't been spending any money this year. There is money in the community to support us, but we've got to go and get it. We can't just sit there hoping that people remember the hospice movement. We've got to go and get that support from them. The solution is a plan. And the solution is a solid plan. And we need to spend the amount of time it needs. I've had a worrying conversation with a couple of people recently where they're saying, yeah, we know we need to think about 2021, but I'm so busy trying to get the stuff done I need to do now that I just can't get to it. And I know it's hard. I know it's so difficult, but we've got to put the time, and we've got to block the time out in our diaries to get in and do the thinking and do the planning. You know, that fail to prepare, prepare to fail thing really is true. And we know we're going to have a combination of things. We're going to have stuff we can definitely do, irrespective of what happens with restrictions, what happens to the pandemic. There are certain fundraising activities we know we can deliver in 2021. So let's plan for those and let's put them in place. There's also stuff we hope and we might be able to do. And so therefore we can think about that and we can have an outline or a sketch plan for those. But let's get that thinking done. Let's get that consideration. If it all goes brilliantly, if the world is back to normal in Easter, what does 2021 look like? But if it isn't, what decisions do we need? And we're going to have that flexibility. And yes, we're going to have to constantly review and change. And our SMTs and our boards of trustees are not going to be happy with that. Because you know how they like the message of this is what you're going to spend and this is what you're going to raise. Do you know what? We cannot do that, in all honesty, this year. We're going to have to say to them, all we can do is deliver the maximum that we are able to do as allowed by the situation. And the money that we raise will be the money that we raise. And there has to be trust in all of our hospices and all of our organizations that we are all going to do everything we can to try and raise the maximum amount of money we can to pay for the most nursing we can. And there is going to have to be flexibility. We're going to need plans A, B, C, D, and further on, etc. We're going to have to move and adapt and change. We might have to shift stuff around in the year, move a big mass participation event planned for May. That may have to shift to September. But we have to have that flexibility and understanding from everyone. And as my colleague Andrew famously says in many meetings that we have, fundraising is a team sport. You know what? Fundraising is not you guys and your colleagues in a little bubble or working from home going off and doing the fundraising while the rest of the hospice world carries on with its business. No. Fundraising, just as care is, fundraising is about the entire hospice. It's about everybody, and everyone's got to join in. So we need that support from trustees, from clinical teams, from SMT, exec team as well. What we can do is provide the structure and the planning that makes the best of every opportunity that we have, okay? And that's why we want to get into the planning. So this is Pebblebeach Hospice's fundraising year 2021-22, okay? So this is us, Pebblebeach Hospice, looking at the year and going, right, this is what we think, and this is our opinion, this is our sketch. You may disagree or agree with some of it, that's great. Right, first thing we're going to be doing in 2021, we've landed from Christmas, we've had whatever Christmas we've had, and we're going to send out a New Year raffle. And we like sending out New Year raffles at Pebblebeach, and we've delivered many of these. And we found that quite often we've moved a raffle from Christmas, from that third quarter, when you've got Light Up Alive, and then you've got a Christmas raffle, and you've got a Christmas appeal. It's a really busy period. And on a few occasions now, we've moved that raffle out of the Christmas period into January. And the effect has basically, hasn't been a positive effect, but it hasn't been negative either. We've been able to keep the income. And it's cleared that space, and it's helped Lights, and it's helped Christmas campaign to move the raffle into January. Also, I think that this year it's quite a momentous thing. We're all going to, I think there's a subliminal thing we've got that we hoped that we'd wake up at, or midnight on January the 1st, suddenly coronavirus would be gone, and we'd be like, oh God, wasn't that awful? Right then, it's not going to happen like that, but we can still offer hope. So one of the raffles that we delivered this year, the prize was the prize that the way that we described it was, if you win this, imagine the family reunion party you're going to be able to afford. And again, I think it's that message of hope and opportunity for the future that I would really want to push out right at the beginning of 2021. So that's what we're going to do with our raffle. This is an opportunity to support the hospice, to support the care that we're delivering, but you know what? You just might have something wonderful yourself. And our prize is going to be the year. And there's no science behind that at all. Other than that, I haven't seen, personally, I've yet to see evidence that a cash, we know that cash prizes, often work better than cars and better than holidays, etc. But the difference between a £3,000 cash prize or a £4,000 cash prize, I can see no evidence, particularly in such small numbers as we hospices tend to use, that makes any difference. We have liked using the year as the prize for a January raffle for many years now. I think 2008 was the first one to deliver, and it keeps the overall prize fund down. We don't get a drop in sign-ups, and it's something nice and resonant. So that's what we're going to be doing. And the reason we're going for raffle, it is a different type of giving. We wouldn't launch a cash appeal in January, but we go out with a raffle because having a bit of fun, having a bit of flutter, maybe win something, but also it's charity support. That kind of giving is possible in January, where we would expect a depression for an appeal. We wouldn't expect depression from raffles. Okay, here's the big one. So in March 2021, we're going to launch our big campaign. We don't know what it's called yet. We're just going to be calling it the big campaign at the moment. We're going to launch this at the end of the financial year. It's going to focus on major donors and high net worth individuals. And the reason we're going at the end of the financial year is this is coming to the end of this year. We are now just putting the final touches to our budget for 21-22. Based on current projections, here's what's in danger. So are we going to lose something that we've always had? Are we not going to be able to start the amazing new thing that we really know that local community wants? But it's a conversation about the realities of budgeting, the realities of planning, again, for the next year. And what we're going to set out to our community, and this goes to the entire community, is, right, we have an ambition. Our goal is to maintain care and secure the care that we provide for our community for the whole of the next year. In order to do that, what we're going to tell them is, right, this is how much money we've lost in 2021. This is the shortfall we're expecting in 21-22. That's the deficit. This is the amount of money we think we're going to be able to backfill from reserves. And some of you guys have got healthy reserves positions, some of you haven't. And therefore that'll be a different solution for each. But That calculation will leave a figure, a sum, and that will be the specific campaign target. And we're going to treat it like a capital appeal. We're going to tell the audience, this is the amount of money we need to bring in order to protect and secure the care that we provide for our community for this year. That's what we need to achieve. So just like a capital appeal, we're not building anything. We're not recreating anything. We don't need a machine. We don't need a new wing. We don't need a new IPU. What we need to do is protect care. But we're going to talk about it exactly the same way. So we'll have a case of support. We'll have an argument. We'll have justifications. We'll have figures in there. For the public communication, we're going to steal the newsletter budget, because we don't feel that actually a newsletter going out to our audience going, hey, here's what's been going on at the hospice for the last 6 months, actually at this moment is relevant. That's not what's on people's minds. So we're going to steal the budget for the postage and also for the print for newsletter. And we're going to create a 1 year on newsletter. And that will simply be a gathering of voices and stories from the hospice, volunteers, staff, patients, family members, talking about their experiences over the last year, because this will be landing pretty much a year after lockdown started. So we're going to have a 1 year on. Here's how we are. But it will also then say, right, the next year is the target. This is what we're going to try and achieve.
Ash?
Yeah.
So one of the questions that we've had, and I actually think it's probably good to address this now, is that obviously people have got things going out in October. Some people might be doing Christmas appeals in November. Some people have already done a draw, a raffle.
Yeah.
So obviously we're starting at the end of January for a raffle. But I mean, there is a little bit of concern. Obviously, if people had that Light Up a Life raffle Christmas thing going out at the end of this year, how soon can that plan start next year?
Yeah, I know, and this was something I was going to touch on this at the end. That's a really good point, in that this is an extraordinary year, and we're going to have an extraordinary year of activity to match. Okay, and yes, I will, as you'll see, I'll say at the end, we're going to be asking people for money a lot of, much more often than we've ever been comfortable to do before. But we're going to do that because it's needed. If we didn't need the money, and again, there's a couple of hospices that we work with that have said, you know what, we've got reserves, we're fine, we're feeling really comfortable, we don't feel comfortable about reaching out and asking for lots of money really urgently because we don't think there's need. Brilliant, absolutely perfect, be real, be honest. But there are many hospices, and I'm kind of positioning Pebblebeach Hospice as a hospice that doesn't have that reserves, that does need the cash, and therefore what we're not going to do is have to get rid of a nursing position or close a ward or rein back on hospice at home or community nursing outreach or bereavement team, simply because we were a bit nervous about going out and asking for the money for it. Do you know what? If we have to do that, it's because we've gone out, we've made the ask, and it hasn't worked. And fair dues, we'll then go back to the clinical team and say, okay, this is a reality situation, we have to close down. I think, there's a conversation we have a few times. Amy, you and I have had this with people I know a few times, in that we sit in our little hospice bubble and we see all the stuff that we do all the time, and we see the messages and the marketing and the raffles and the things that are going out, and we kind of think, oh wow, we're just constantly talking about the hospice all the time. Do you know what? Take it from the audience perspective. They don't see it that way. Their knowledge and experience is a lake filled with droplets of information from lots and lots of different people, and our stuff that we send out is a stone that we throw, and it skims off the surface and it makes a few impressions, and then it sinks and the ripples disappear, and then it carries them in the lake, and then we throw another stone, and so we're not bombarding supporters with stuff here. We are speaking to our friends in a situation of urgent and dire and reasonable need about a problem and solution. And as long as we use that communication, if we run out to them every single time screaming fire from the rooftops, then of course we are the boy that cried wolf and we will lose their support. But if every single time we communicate, we update, this is where we are, this is what we said last time, here's where we've moved to now, this is the reality situation, here's what we're asking you to do, people can make an informed choice. As one, Jackie, I always remember Jackie Ward's sister at St Barnabas back in 2006, taking me on a tour, said, just because you're dying doesn't mean you turn into a blithering idiot. And we shouldn't treat our audiences let's treat them like, educated individuals who can make an informed choice. But let's give them a choice, because if we don't give them that opportunity, they won't take it because they won't think we need it. So what I'm trying to do here with this big campaign is to create a theme for the whole of 2021 fundraising. We start the year by telling you that we've got a goal and a mission, and it's a year away. And it's about protecting what we have, protecting the care, using the stories of experience to illustrate that. And so as we go throughout 2021, we're going to be able to constantly come back and say, remember we told you that was the thing we were trying to do? Here's how we are. Okay, we've taken some steps, but we're not there yet. Right, here's the next thing we're asking you to do. And that's a journey, and it's a conversation. And if we engage the audience, I believe, properly and sensibly and logically and honestly, then we'll, in a year's time, or, you know, for us in 18 months' time, we can get to March 2022, and we'll have taken the audience with us, and they'll be part of that success. If we've managed to protect and save the hospice services that really matter, they will be part of that success, and we will have built a community that will then want to go on and look at what the opportunities and possibilities are for the future. But I will not sit back and go, oh, I'm a bit worried about that, I'm not going to ask. Yeah.
So just to be clear, Ash, so the newsletter that you've suggested here, that is sort of the way that everybody starts the journey, with the exception with the major donors and the high net worths. Is that how you've got?
Yeah. So that's almost. I'm thinking about, we did it for a capital appeal once, it worked really well, where we took the newsletter and effectively created a case of support, but in like a little newsletter format, so maybe an A5 and A4, whatever. But it's based on the narrative, right? Problem, solution. Here's the timescale. Here's the journey. Here's the money we need. Here's what we're going to do. And all the way through, that's evidenced by the voices of people who matter, illustrating why we're actually saying this out. So that can be a document.
Sorry, I think you're thinking about St. Richard's. We did that for part of their build.
Yeah, and we did it for Woking and not Woking and Sandby, in High Wycombe. Sorry, I forgot the name. Day Hospice in High Wycombe. We did it many years ago. I'm just saying that for me personally, again, guys, this is a personal decision. You may violently disagree, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying I'm right. But I think I want to spend my newsletter budget actually reaching out, and I want it to be focused on the message of fundraising. And I want to take that opportunity to set this up so that from March 2021, as we enter the new financial year, we've got a thing, and we're talking about that. And I've mentioned community and corporate there. I'll touch on that later, because I think it's not just individual giving. This theme, this meme, this focus on fundraising, of protecting the service of 2021, for me, that's our fundraising message for the world. And it's about how we then transmit that message to different audiences. It's important. So let me move on. Okay, May, we're going to have a summer remembrance. Now, guys, we're going to do sunflowers. You may not do sunflowers. You may hate sunflowers. You may be sick of sunflowers. You may want to do forget-me-nots or roses or whatever. Do you know what? Absolutely fine. Go for your life. We're going to do sunflowers because for Pebblebeach Hospice, it kind of works for us. And we're going to go out in May, and it's going to be bigger than usual. Just like Light Up a Life at the end of this year, we're going to make sure that summer remembrance is something that's an engagement opportunity for the entire community. If you've lost a loved one, whenever, whether or not they've been cared for by the hospice, you know what? If you would like to engage in something positive and colourful as an act of engagement and remembrance and celebration of their lives, you can come and do that with us. And we can be the place where you can do that. And we're going to do sunflowers. Now, we've got the idea. We're going to send out branded to Pebblebeach Hospice, sponsored packets of sunflower seeds, and we're going to send those out to our best 4,000 supporters of our individual giving campaign. We're going to pick the top 4K, and we're going to send them a pack of seeds. We're then going to send other people. We've got many more than 4K at Pebblebeach Hospice. We're then going to send the rest of them their version of the appeal without the seeds in, because we're only going to send the seeds out to the best prospects. And we're going to have 1,000 packs of these seeds left as thank you. So anyone else that then responds that hasn't had the seeds, they'll then get the seeds, and we can hand them out wherever. And we're going to get those seeds sponsored, and that's going to cost 1,800 quid. So sponsorship of 1,800 quid is going to have the corporate sponsor. It's a lovely corporate opportunity. We've got quite a few of our Pebblebeach Hospices corporate partners that would love that kind of thing. And it's something that we're going to send out to people. And the message there is about, again, hope, togetherness. You plant your sunflowers at home. We're going to plant ours at the hospice. We plant them in May. They bloom in August, and are just about bang on right at this time of year, aren't they? And that's about, again, planting hope, colour, renewal, vibrance, etc. We think that this is going to be a softer art. So there will be a fundraising message in here. We ask you to consider making a donation to the hospice, but we know we can't just keep hitting the donors between the eyes every single time. So we're going to soften this one. This will be much more of an opt-in. If you'd like to give, that'd be brilliant. We'd really appreciate your help, etc. Okay, so we're expecting less income for that one. And then we've booked in a summer raffle, and we'll take a view on that in early April. And our raffle is going to go ahead if the New Year raffle did well. And the evidence from the work that we've done, and Amy has delivered a couple of unbelievably successful raffles this summer already, is that this is a really positive option, and therefore we're pretty confident we're going to be delivering a summer raffle next year. But we'll belt and braces. We'll make sure that we've got that the success from January to back that up. We'll make the decision in early April, because that's when we need to start planning this. One of the things I wanted to say actually about the planning process is it's really, really important. I know how hard it is. It's really important it is that we start thinking and start kicking off and planning this stuff before the next thing's done. We've just been briefed. For example, where are we? 24th of September. We've just taken a brief to deliver a Light Up Alive campaign, and I know it's really, really tight, and there's lots of really good reasons for that. But next year, we know what the situation is going to be like. So we've got to put the bones of these things in place early. So we need the clinical reasoning, we need the stories, we need the case studies, we need to have those things backed up so that we're not rushing, we're not finishing one thing and then rushing into the next thing and having to rush that. Let's stagger it. And again, that's a conversation I know that's difficult to have sometimes, particularly with management, particularly with trustees. Guys, I need to take some time out to spend thinking and planning, because if I don't do that, then I'm not going to be efficient at the delivery end of it. Okay, so we'll plan this. We're also going to take a view on whether fundraising events are still going on. So if mass participation events are back and everything, then do you know what? That's probably going to be the thing that we go massive with. And maybe therefore a raffle wouldn't be the right thing. Personally, I think that's quite unlikely given the situation we have at the moment. However, we'll take a view on it in April. And then we get into summer. And we're going to have a summer appeal in July. So again, you can see, not holding back here. We're going in July, we're talking to them, and this is another ask. So this is launch campaign part 2. Okay, so this is what I'm saying about we set the scene in March. We told our audience that we have a goal and ambition to deliver income of a certain amount of money because it protects this care and these experiences. Right then, we're now in July. How are we getting on? And we'll update the audience and we'll say thank you to people that have already given, but we're still not there yet. And if you can give again, please do. For those people that didn't give the first time, that look like good prospects, we'll go to them and say, we had a great response, but it wasn't all that we needed. We are coming back to you now and we really need your support. So we'll give them the progress. And we've got an idea to hold a garden party. That's the garden at Pebblebeach Hospice with our boating lake in the back there. And we're going to hold a garden party and we're going to invite our key supporters. So we might do a kind of, little tables dispersed, socially distanced thing. And we're going to get our major donors, key corporate, maybe community leaders as well. We'll get the mayor, get the MP, that kind of thing. And we're going to sit them down. We're going to give them some food and a drink in the garden, and we're going to keep them distance, but we're then going to speak to them, and we're going to have a family member speaking. We're going to have a nurse definitely speaking about this is the reality of what it's been like at the hospice, and this is what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to save this and protect it for future generations, but in order to do that, we need help. That's why we have the fundraising campaign. Here's how we've got on so far. This is what we need from you now. So this is another opportunity for outreach. And if we can get people in the garden, and we can get, even if it's 20 people, we'll do that, and we can meet them face to face. And one of the things to say about that, the focus on major donor and high net worth, if you see me speak before, it's always focusing on the top 20% that gives the 80% of the income. There's a few hospice teams that we've worked with that have basically said to us, we haven't had any money. We've had very little money from our major donors and high net worths, because normally we schmooze them and we send them lovely little things and we get them in and we give them a tour or something. Well, we haven't been able to do that. Therefore, we haven't had the money. But that's because there hasn't been the confidence there to actually just either pick up the phone, which that's how I started telephone fundraising. I know how difficult that is, just to phone someone up and ask them for money, or to write a letter to them saying, this is us, this is you, we need your money. But what mustn't happen, again, that, Shaun of the Dead thing there, we can't, for our major donors, we can't just sit and wait for all this to blow over before we get back to the major donors and ask them, because you know what? Other charities are not doing that. Other charities are engaging, other charities are reaching out, other charities are asking them for money. And if we don't engage with those key supporters, what we're going to find in, let's hope, Easter 22, when suddenly we invite them back in, they go, yeah, brilliant. Yeah, really support the hospice, but actually I've just given a load of money over to whoever else it is, because they're the ones that came out and asked. So we've got to maintain that engagement with those key audiences. And if we can get in front of them face to face, then brilliant, we'll do that. But if not, we need to pick up the phone, or we need to organize a little Zoom session, or we need, if we can't do either of those, then we just need to sit down and write to them and say, this is the problem, this is the solution, we need you, can you help? And that's why that little newsletter thing that we're talking about in March, for me, that's our little case of support. That's something that I can put in an envelope with a personalized hand addressed letter to any individual I need to, going, it was lovely to have that conversation with you. Here's the thing. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is why we need it. This is the emotional stuff, yeah, that we usually give them by bringing them into the hospice. That's why I need that little piece of thing there, yeah. Okay, I'm going to get faster because the further into the year we get, the kind of less defined we are, you know. So September 21, we're back to Light Up a Life. I'm expecting to be able to welcome, just like the garden party, I think we're going to have some small numbers. Maybe we'll have a big marquee up in the grounds of the car park at that point so we can shelter, but we're expecting to have some people there. Maybe it might only be those who lost a loved one to COVID since the last Live. Maybe that's all we can do. Maybe it's just, you know, a handful of people selected at random and their families that can come in and share the experience. But we are expecting to have a few people, but it's not going to be back. We are already planning for our Light Up a Life next year, that it's not going to be all back to normal and let's, you know, forget 2020 ever happened. It is going to be the reality that we'll have a few people there. So we're going to continue and have our streamed version. Just as we've done this year, we're going to film it, we're going to record the service, and we're going to live stream that. We're going to put it on Facebook, we're going to put it on YouTube, it'll be on the website, etc., etc. And our expectation, interesting, listen on Radio 4 this morning, there was a couple of clergy members talking to each other about their experiences of digital and saying, actually, they've been amazed at the number of people that have engaged with worship digitally that just couldn't come to the service before. But because they can access from home, they're doing it digitally. They're doing it, they're there worshiping in person for the first time, and they're part of a congregation, and they're really getting a lot of value from that. I think Lights is exactly the same. I think there's lots of people that just can't get to us, that can't. David, I'm looking at you because you're one of the few I can see. Your Lights, you know, yours up that little track, you know, you got up the little road, there's no lighting, there's mud everywhere, you know, it's a real pain, isn't it, for a lot of people? Actually, if we can give them, you know, a virtual experience where they can be part of that congregation, part of that community from home, I think a lot of people will like that in 2020. I think they'll want it again in 21. I think we're probably setting ourselves up for, this is how we're going to do this stuff in the future. We're going to have digital virtual versions of stuff. So I'm already going to plan for that. So really the planning for Lights this year starts the week after Lights event happens this year. We're going to have a debrief. We're going to get clinical together, bereavement services together, fundraising together, participants are going to go, right, what was good stuff? Let's remember that. Let's write it down. Let's do it again next year. What was rubbish? What fell over? Right, we won't do that. We'll improve that for next year. But let's make sure we have a wash-up, because I don't know about you guys, but quite often we'll sit with, you know, a hospice team, or we'll meet a hospice team on Zoom, and we'll talk about Lights as an example. And we'll say, right, guys, Light to Life. Right, what happened last year? And we just met with blank faces going, oh, was it last year? Did we have the exploding donkey last year? Or was that the year before? I can't remember. And no one's got, you know, you just literally, it just falls from memory. So let's grab that stuff this year while we can do that, yeah? And the last thing, we are absolutely at Pebblebeach Hospice going to make sure that we have grabbed every single name of every loved one that was given to us last year. And that when we reach out and communicate in 21, we're going to be sending that name back out as part of the communication, going, hi there, Mr. Smith. Last year, you asked us to remember and celebrate the life of Fred Smith. Would you like us to do so again? If so, wonderful. Here's the thing that we're going to offer you. Yeah. So we'll make sure that we've captured that data. But again, the planning side, maybe there's a bit of crunching. Maybe there's a bit of work that needs to go on quite early in the year to make sure that we've cleaned that list, that we know the names are right, that we know the donor that they're associated with, so we can start building that base. Again, that's often the challenge we find, is hospitals like to do that, but that connection of names and data hasn't been achieved, which doesn't make that possible for next year. We know we want to do it next year, so let's think about it now, yeah? All right, Christmas. Really short one on this one. Yes, we're going to do a Christmas appeal. definitely already it's in there in ink in the plan. We will be asking people for money at Christmas because it's Christmas, and there's going to be one of two really, really good bloody reasons why we're asking people for money. Okay, firstly, it could be this is our second Christmas for patients in lockdown. We need your help to get us through this, to try and lift that experience however it's possible to be lifted. We need you in there. We need your help in. Or if it's not that, it's going to be we're back and we're open and we're going to have reindeer and we're going to have people coming in and nurses in dealy boppers and silly earrings and that kind of thing, and we're going to have mince pies and choirs coming in, because you know what, it's all fine. In which case, help us to make this, you know, we need double Christmas next year, don't we, in that case, to make up for this one. So we're going to need your help. So either it's going to be a message of continued need and the opportunity to try and make life better for patients, or it's going to be an opportunity for a huge, massive celebration and engagement of community. Either way, we're going to be asking for people for money at Christmas, okay? So that one's in there. It's ink. You're not getting rid of it, right? Okay, and then really quickly blasting through for the rest of the calendar year. So January 22, New Year raffle, win £2,022 to begin your year. And again, we'll think of a theme, we'll work it out once we get there, but we know we're going to have, we've got that in there. Again, the final biggie, we said in March 21 that we were launching this thing, that we had a vision, we had a kind of a revenue capital hybrid kind of thing, where we had a fixed amount of money to achieve a fixed objective, which would protect the hospice, protect the care and support that the hospice delivers. Right then, March 22, we're going to go back again and we're going to tell them how we did. Again, we'll focus on the end of financial year. The reason for end of financial year, sorry, I didn't mention that last time, is that major donors and high net worths, sometimes it can be quite helpful for a donor to make a gift in March because it helps their personal tax efficiency. A few years ago, we hooked up one of our hospices that we're working with a local investment management company, financial management advisory company, who offered a free advice session to every one of their donors who wished it, so that they could look at actually, would making a donation to the hospice this March be you know, how might we use that as part of your tax efficiency planning? Yeah, and that was a free session. The company loved it because it was basically, you know, a free introductions to potential clients, and the individual donors liked it because there's free advice and support from them on how to spend the money. So again, you know, we'll do the same again next March in 22. How did we do? How was care saved? And hopefully the ambition is we did it. We got there. Thank you. Look at what you did. Yeah. You gave us the, you know, we asked you for the support. You gave it to us. And now we have a solid foundation from which to move forward once again with the development of the future of hospice care for local adults, kids, etc., etc. Brilliant. And we now need you to make sure that because we got there, we don't want to ever have to go through this again. So we're going to have two focuses. For those audience, for the part of the audience we think it's most appropriate, we're going to be talking about regular giving. And notice everything else so far has been cash, one-off. This is a one-off urgent situation. We need one-off urgent money. Yeah. We get to 22. We're now thinking long-term. We've kind of, hopefully, fingers crossed, touch everything. We've got some security. Now it's about stability and predictability of the future. So this is when we need to talk about regular giving. We need, you know, we've had this year of asking for money. We don't want to repeat that. Give us the regular giving. Make sure that we don't have to come back. Give us that solid foundation. It's, for me, it's the perfect moment, assuming all this goes well, that we talk about regular giving. But again, we've got to start planning for that. We've got to start thinking about it. And if you haven't done, so one of the things, for example, on regular giving, if you haven't got direct debit set up, go and get direct debit set up so that when you go out in March 22, you're asking for DDs and not standing orders, okay? And if you can get all this accredited so you can do paperless, then all the better as well. However, for those audiences that, the high value audiences, the ones that have really come up, the ones, the major donors, the high net worths, the donors that came out of the woodwork, that gave us the money that blew our socks off. One of our children's hospices, we sent out, you know, a resilience appeal in the summer for a children's hospice. One donor who had given, I think, £10 and then £15 a few years ago, rocked up with a check for 30 grand from their family trust that we had no idea that they had. Do you know what? Again, if you don't get out there, if you don't get out with the opportunity, people like that won't support you. So for those key individuals, that the ones that have demonstrated that they're receptive, that they get it, that they're supporting us, that's where I want to be having the legacy message. Again, perfect opportunity saying, look, we've got through this crisis, hopefully. Looking forward, give us the strength, give us the security to know that if this happens again, and the word from the scientists is this is not likely to be the last time. We're going to live with COVID for a while. Maybe there's other stuff happening because of the way that the world works. Do you know what? We should never be in a situation again where we have to go through this oh shit period on fundraising because we didn't have that planning. So let's talk about legacies logically, passionately, strongly at that point. And again, I'm going to grab the newsletter budget that I would normally have in there, and I'm going to do another one, a part 2 of the one. I'm going to have the thank you version. I'm going to have the success version, the we did it version. You got this through. You're part of us. We're a community together version. Yeah. I'm going to have voices of donors in there as well that are saying, I'm so proud and privileged to be part of the team that got the hospice through, that reached this, you know, the landing pad, the safety that we now find ourselves in. And talking about that sense of community. So we're going to say thank you. Moving on. Where am I doing for time? I'm going to be a little bit over, but only a little bit. I'm quite pleased with myself, okay? I just want to mention corporate and community really, really briefly, all right? So I've talked about the fact that this thing that we start in March 21, it's the one consistent message across all audiences. It makes no sense, in my view, for the hospice to have different messages of fundraising, need and solution for different audiences. It's simply about how do people engage and interact with us that's the important thing. The need is the need. The solution is income, and we're simply reaching out to our different audiences and saying, right, you guys are asking for donation, you guys are asking for engagement, you guys are asking for sponsorship, whatever it might be, but the need's the same. That's why that little newsletter case support thing in March 21, I think that's vital, because that's something I can give. If we've got our community fundraisers, if they're managing to get back out there, brilliant. If not, it's something we can send digitally. We'll also offer engagement and recognition as well. And there's recognition an important point. There's one particular, I can't tell you who, but there's one particular charity, non-hospice charity that we're working with that's, again, been really hit by COVID. It's an extraordinary situation. All this stuff that we're talking about, we're delivering for them, but we're starting next week, and it's got to raise £250,000 by the end of March from a standing start. So one of the things we're going to be doing in this unique and extraordinary situation is offering unique and extraordinary recognition. So do you know what? We're probably going to be grabbing some of the old school stuff. There's going to be a bit of mahogany with some gold leaf on it. At some point, do you know what? There's going to be something like that where we go back and say, in this one-off time of community need, these people, these organizations came to our aid, and we recognize and we celebrate and we thank them for that engagement. And we're going to give them that, because this is an extraordinary thing we're asking them. So we're going to say thank you in an extraordinary way. And I want to have that. I want to think about it and plan it so that when someone says, I want to give you £1 million, we can go, wonderful, here's how we're going to say thank you, rather than going, but maybe we'll have a plaque. Yeah. So let's think about the recognition as well. Crucial thing for corporates, in my view, is I think we've got to give corporates, our corporate partners and supporters, the chance to be part of our family, to remain part of our supporting community, to have the feel good, etc., to have that accessibility, even if they can't give us any money. There are going to be lots of companies, lots and lots of companies, whose mission is simply to survive and to try and protect as many jobs as they can. They're not going to have a lot of money to give to charity. They'd love to, but bless them, they can't do that. But do you know what? Let's friend raise, as Andrew, my colleague, famously says. Let's friend raise if we can't fundraise. Let's keep those relationships up, because what we're doing is we're building relationships that will come to fruition for us as fundraisers. Maybe it won't take 2 years, maybe 3 years, but you know what? They will recognize that. They will know us, that we were the charity that didn't bash them over the head with guilt and said, you've got to give us your money, even if it's only a £5. We said, we get it. We recognize the situation. Stay close. We're going to stay close to you. When you're ready to come back and help and support and engage, we can do that. Yeah. One of the things, just pitching, sorry, rubbish, not rubbish, it's a brilliant idea. One of the children's hospices we're supporting, part of their messaging for Christmas, they're going to be reaching out to corporate supporters saying, I know it's difficult, I know it's mad, and you're working from home or whatever the situation is. We can't have you visiting the hospice this year and giving us loads of toys and chocolate and presents or whatever you might normally do. So instead, how about doing something as individuals or as a group, as a turn, on Zoom, whatever you fancy, film it, send it to us. We're going to put a montage of all these people, and we said, like, do a turn, tell a funny joke, sing a carol, dress up as Santa, do whatever. Do something fun and engaging. We'll pull those together and we'll put that on the screen in the main lounge of the hospice, because we still want you here this Christmas. We still want your engagement. So it's those kind of human, emotional engagement opportunities. You know, we can still do this stuff, even if we're not getting any money. But just because someone can't give us the money at the moment doesn't mean we ignore them. If we think there's an opportunity to maintain that relationship because it's going to lead to something stronger and better in the future, then let's keep that up, even if it's just the smallest thing. Even if it's, guys, sending you Christmas cards, sending you messages to the kids or the families or whatever it's going to be. Do something that's engaging. Show your support. Still an opportunity to do that. Right, really, really briefly, events fundraising. I'm not an events fundraiser. Neil, who leads our events fundraising, is working with a few of our clients at the moment, and it's just all up in the air completely. Do you know what? Mass participation events, again, question for the hospice. Should we be even? Should we even until it's completely not risky? Should we be even being the people that says, hey guys, let's get together in a big group and do a run? Because hang on our clinical teams the ones that have to pick up the pieces when someone gets there? So again, that's a moral decision. That's a decision that's not just for us as fundraisers, the whole organisation. That's SMT and trustees making the decision. But even if we can deliver mass participation events, you know, we've got the 10Ks, fun run, colour dashes. We've got to have a plan for each. We can move things. COVID safe stuff. So the things that Neil's working on is about. He's working on a couple of the big mass participation stunts that's planned, events that are planned for London. It's all about staggered starts. It's all about small groups, keeping people in bubbles, sanitizing stations as you go. If there are pinch points in a particular route, it's about being able to manage that and log places. But there's a lot of work and there's a lot of volunteer time that's needed. And bluntly, at the moment, those mass participation stuff, even the biggies, and there's been a triathlon he was working on recently, it broke even because of the extra complexity and cost and the fewer people taking part. So again, do we want to put that time into keeping that momentum up if we're not going to make any money, or do we try and get the one thing we've got to do is have a plan to, if we can, we're ready, we know what we're doing. But if we can't, we can shift stuff. There are things we can definitely deliver, as I said at the top there. There are at-home events, there are virtual events, and we can do things in small solo groups. No, it's not going to raise the same money as our normal program would, but we can still keep people engaged, we can still keep people enthused. And again, the reason why they might choose to take part in something like that is back to our central message we set out in March. This is what we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to achieve. Here's how you can do this. Here's an idea for you and your family to engage at home, to do something, do some fundraising, and quiz and run or bake a cake, whatever it is, but it's all leading to the same objective. Yeah? So we don't have to have a new reason for doing the event every time. This is what we're trying to achieve. And that last point I think is really important for us. We're going to be contacting at Pebblebeach Hospice all of our eventers in advance, and we're saying, guys, it's really up in the air. How are you feeling? Give us your views. Would you be comfortable taking part in a mass participation event? If we did something virtual, would that be something? Let's find out. Let's go and talk to them. Let's explain the need. And the reason I want to do that is to get an idea of numbers for possibilities in the future, but also because for those people that say, do you know what, I'm really not comfortable with this, I'd like to be able to go back at the relevant point. We're going, fine, completely understand your point of view, but we really need the money that you would have raised for us this year. Could you donate instead? I need to be able to have that conversation and give them that opportunity. Yeah. And particularly where the event, it was a midnight walk event, etc., where the motivation for the event participation was IMO. I really want to make sure that we're not just going, oh, okay, then we'll see you when we start events up again. I want to make sure that we're going, you were doing that event because of an in-memory motivation. Here's something else we're offering you instead that's either digital or virtual, or just make a donation. Yeah.
On that note, Ash, I think it's also really important to mention the fact that motivations for doing things virtually are often quite different anyway. So anybody who came to the social media presentation that we did, a lot of it is about recognition. But if we are in some form of lockdown for the next 6 months, a lot of people are going to be joining the Couch to 5K. It's going to be really important that they have some sort of outdoor or exercise activity to look forward to. Yeah. And if you're the vehicle for them doing that, then all the better.
And social engagement as well, isn't it? You know, the quizzes and all that kind of stuff. It's an opportunity to get together with your friend. It gives you a reason to do it. You know what? Again, it's not going to deliver the same money as a marathon or a 10K, but it keeps you in touch. It keeps you doing that. Okay, sorry, just jumping on talking about trust briefly. I'm 5 minutes over. March appeal is going to say that little thing, that's going to be our case of support, and that's going to form the basis of our trusting. I know some people have struggled with trust. It's interesting. Some people have gone absolutely brilliant with it, and they've got a big program in it. Others are kind of, the trust has fallen down somewhat. For 21, the whole of 21-22, Pebblebeach Hospice is going to have 2 streams. We're going to have COVID-specific streams. There is still lots of funds out there that are specifically about helping you to deal with the effects of COVID-19, and those funds will continue, and new funds are being created. Okay, so but they are specific funds for specific reasons, and you've got to do the work. You've got to do the research. You've got to find out whether you can apply, how you apply. You've got to fill in the massive form, etc. We've been working with a number of our charities. One little charity with a turnover of 580,000 has just landed £104,000 from a COVID response fund, because we were able to help them to demonstrate that this is how it's affecting us. This is what we want to do to mitigate it. This is the cost of it, and we're asking for support. And because we did that process, they gave the money, even though it was an extraordinary amount for that charity, because the reason was there and the solution was the money. And that's what it's there for. And if you don't go out and get it, if you don't go out and apply for that in a reasonable way, you won't get that income. But there are also going to be general revenue funds available as well. There are going to be funders that will that are probably going to be moving. We're already hearing this from some of the biggies like Garfield Weston, for example. They're moving a lot of the funding away from the kind of capital stuff that they might normally be looking at into much more about revenue support. So you're going to find that funders are more open to receiving applications and requests for revenue funding. However, you still got to go through the process. Yeah. So it's still the same thing. But for me, that little thing that we're talking about in March 21, that's your starting point. And then the specific needs fall from that. But the starting point is there.
Ash, just briefly, door drop. Do you want to talk about that after the summary or before?
Door drop? Do you want to talk about door drop?
Yeah. So if, for example, I mean, well, I guess, would you recommend door drop? Is our hospice doing door drop, and which appeal would we be doing?
Okay. So what I haven't done in this deliberately, guys, sorry if I missed that, I haven't laid out to you all the different media that we'll be using. So everything that you've seen here, we are going to be delivering the media that is right and appropriate for that campaign. So it's definitely going to be individual, definitely going to be direct mail in there. There's definitely going to be social. There's definitely going to be email, etc. At times, if it's appropriate, if it's working, then yes, there will be door drops. So, for example, if we're reaching out and delivering cold work, it's the March 21. That's where I'd be putting most of the energy, and I'd want to see what the results are for March 21 before I start thinking about anything like July or later on, etc. Classically, for me, if I'm going to put some money into cold recruitment, then yes, door drop. But I am also interested in trying to bring the phone back. I think phone's going to make a big comeback in 21. I think we're all going to start using the phone a lot more. I want to focus that on March 21 and Christmas 21. That's where I want to put that effort. Yeah. But again, for me, March 21 is not just fundraising, not just individual giving. It's also my marketing team or my colleagues in Pebblebeach fundraising and marketing team. We're working together to make sure that we've got the message going out in the press, that we've got celeb support on board, we've got voices of patrons, etc. It's a combined effort. But if we think about it now, March 21 for us, Pebblebeach Hospice, and for us in our team as experienced fundraisers, if we're planning to launch that big thing in the beginning of March 21, we're starting now. We're not waiting until January. We've got to get this stuff going now, and that means therefore there's got to be conversations with SMT, etc., and decisions now, because if not, we're not going to be able to launch the thing in 21 because we won't be ready, and then it'll go in June or July, and we've missed 3 months of the year. So we've got to start thinking about it now. But yeah, door drop, cold acquisition through different media, yes, where appropriate, but test and roll out. Take it easy. So this, in the summary, plan for the whole year. And you can see individual giving will lead. And the reason I'm banging on about individual giving and only giving kind of small attention to other forms of fundraising, it's the one thing we can guarantee to do. And everything that I've talked to you about, everything that we've mentioned here is something that we've done before many times, that other hospices have done. And I know that in a particular year, putting all of those things into one hospice communication plan is a lot. It's way more than we would normally do. Do you know what? We need to. There's a reason. And supporters will understand, okay? But we can guarantee that whatever happens, whatever the restrictions, whatever happens with, another lockdown coming in and anything, do you know what? We can sit and we can write to people and we can tell them the problem and we can offer them the opportunity to be part of the solution. And we can do that come hell or high water. So we're going to plan for that. Everything else we'll add in and we'll bring back in and we'll adapt and amend as we go. But we're definitely going to be reaching out to people and we're definitely going to be asking for money. We'll set decision points for each activity. Let's have go, no go points for the stuff that we're not sure about. You know, let's make sensible decisions about when we think we can go. But we don't want to wait until the last minute and then try and splurge something, because it's not going to work. We'll take the time, we'll do it properly, but we're not going to spend any money on anything until we know we're going to go ahead and do it. And yeah, we are going to, as I said, we're going to ask for money often, and that's okay. Right, so final thing to say is, as you got myself, Amy, Helen, Emily, Naomi, Chelsea, all working absolutely flat out at the moment, delivering umpty different things for many of our hospice charity clients and non-hospice clients as well. That's what we're here to do. And the three things that we're doing at the moment already, working with our partners, is firstly supporting with planning. If it helps, and sometimes it does, if it helps to have an outsider, but particularly people that have got a lot of breadth of experience from across the movement, just to sit virtually next to you while you're working through this plan, going, well, does that make sense? What about this? How do we do this? Because every individual hospice is going to have its own little unique little thing that needs to be fitted in, etc. So how does that work? If it helps to have someone to, as a sounding board, to bounce stuff off, to support putting that plan together, we're here to do that. We can also audit the supporter base. So those of you, I think many of you will have had that from us already, where we've taken your data and we've given you analysis. You know me, in this restricted times with restricted budgets, and heaven forfend if we've had to, make fundraisers redundant because we can't justify them, we are not going to be able to reach out to 100% of our audience with 100% efficiency. So if all we can do is reach a limited part of our audience, it should be the top 20% that is going to give us 80% of the income. And we have to make sure, if all we can achieve, that they get the plan that we need them to get and everyone else gets whatever we can do, that's fine. But in order to do that, you've got to know who they are. We can help you identify those, okay? And finally, as we are right now, we can build and deliver campaigns. So where you haven't got the resource in-house, or you haven't got the time because you need to do your planning to get an appeal out the door, we can come and do that for you. Again, if you need us, we're here to help, and you can come and ask us. But the final message I'll say is, just selling Amy. So Amy is going to be here in 2 weeks' time talking in detail about raffles. So if your raffle antennae were twitching at the beginning of this, and you're thinking, oh, that sounds interesting, then please come listen to what Amy has to say in a couple of weeks' time. Because Amy's going to talk you through the whole kind of process and our experience and give you some results and stuff that we've done before. Okay. This is us. You know us. Get in touch. Do not feel that you're not allowed to come and talk to us and ask us a question because you're going to be worried that we're going to be annoyed at you if you don't then give us any work. We don't care about that. Okay. We'd love to work with you. We're here to help if you can. But if it helps to have half an hour with us, looking at these issues, bringing them back to your hospice and saying, yeah, what about this? I'm not sure about this. Please come and have the conversation. We can only give you our opinion based on our experience, okay? And if that helps, wonderful. If it doesn't, sod you. But you know what? Come and ask. Come, we're here. Yeah, we're part of the community. Come and ask us. So anything that's relevant to your specific hospice, please just drop us an email to hello@pebblebeachfundraising.com. Amy, myself, and the team will endeavour to come back to you as soon as we can. And again, if we need to book in a phone call or a Zoom or an email conversation, then we're happy to do that. Okay. All right, guys, that's me done. I did an hour. Do you know what? I started off. I put this is going to be a 60-minute presentation. I went, no. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do 45, and I was 60 anyway. I hope that was useful for you. I hope that I've annoyed you by telling you to do things that you're already doing. I hope that I've challenged you, hopefully, to think about things that maybe you hadn't thought of. The one thing I hope I've inspired you to do in this is that there is a solution to this, okay? And the way that we all retain our sanity and that you deliver the maximum you can for your hospice colleagues so that they can do the vital work they need to do is by getting the planning done, putting the time in, thinking about it. And if you need help, give us a shout, okay? Right. Love and hugs virtually from all of us to all of you. Yes?
Yeah, a very good point here. My webinar is not on a Saturday. I'm very committed to the job. However, It's Thursday. Yes, it's Thursday. Okay,
Thursday.
well done. I was just checking.
Thursday. What are you on about? Honestly, if I do
Tony,
that
I'm
to you,
blaming you. No,
if
it's
I do that to you.
definitely the 8th on a Thursday.
All right.
At
Okay.
10 o'clock.
It's me, Raffle Wonderful. Right.
When I say that mine will be 40 minutes long, it will be 40 minutes long.
Okay. I'm going to laugh so hard if it's not, if you go over. Okay. I'm going to rip shreds off you. I really will.
I will take that bet.
All right.
It will be 30 minutes.
Okay. So sharing. So, go back to your hospices and prepare for government. Okay. Have fun. Be passionate. Be engaging. Take the planning. Challenge your SMT and your trustees. Okay. This is, and I'm looking, there's a couple of people I'm looking at here who this definitely applies to. Fundraising is not just something that you have to do, yeah, and then post and then turn up and go, oh, by the way, here's all the money you need for the care. This is something for everyone, for the whole hospice. This planning process, you need engagement from your clinicians, from your SMT, your exec, and from your trustees. Don't be shy. Go and get that. And if they don't do it, tell me and I'll go and shout them for you, right? Okay. Right, we're going. Bye-bye. Love to all of you. Hugs. Be well. Take care. See you soon.